we begin by acknowledging that we're gathering on the lands that were seized from the Western Abenaki people by European invaders, and that we remember this to remember that their story redefines our story, redefines our understanding of ownership, of justice, and of peace. And we want to grow in understanding them so that we can grow in understanding our world more completely. I moved over here to give you a new center. To remember the Western Abenaki is to remember our natural world and our land. So I thought I'd stand by the windows. I also thought I'd stand by the windows because this service is about finding and being willing to move to new centers. So this service will be moving through different centers, and we'll look at how do we center ourselves with different ages, different races, different genders, different orientations, different races. How do we center ourselves and see the world in new ways as we empathize and listen and understand people who are in the world in ways that are different than us? So welcome to Champlain Valley United the UUS. Champlain Valley Unitarian Universalist Society. I am Liam Batches. I go by he, him pronouns, and I am your worship assistant today. Barnaby Feeder, our leader, will be walking us through this decentering service. We have a special guest, Skylar Franklin, and more about that in the middle of the service. Thank you to everybody who's made this possible. There's all kinds of people listed in the bulletin, 2 people who are special and are helping out in their own way, Helene and Larry, and Mitch will be the flamethrower for today. I mean the chalice lighter. Now, as we move from announcements to pathways to connection, let me tell you that next week will also be a service about inclusion as we look at how do we celebrate the holidays when we come from so many different perspectives. Yeah. How does a Jewish, Buddhist, Christian, Wiccan, vegetarian, Unitarian, humanist celebrate the holidays? And if you're interested in the answer, well, then let's talk next week. Also, we're getting ready for the Radical Love Party. The Radical Love Party, it sounds like something from the 60s, doesn't it? With a lot of music and very little clothing. No. The Radical Love Party is a chance for us to give to each other in ways that are meaningful to each other, and also ways that there are no economic barriers, that regardless whether you're struggling financially or very flush with cash, then you can participate as we build a more just and caring community. And more from Barnaby Feeder to explain what this entails.
Yes, we aren't decentered enough to get back to the 60s on the Radical Love Party. But we do have something that, as far as we know, no other congregation is doing, and it's coming to fruition over the next couple of weeks. So what has to happen now, if you haven't figured out what you want to share with other congregants, whether it's a dinner, a walk you want to lead somewhere, a class you want to teach, an event you want to go to, and you want to take someone to that with you, any opportunity for fellowship over the next 12 months, that's your offering to the Radical Love Party. And you can go online on the front of our website. It'll tell you exactly how to do it with a very simple form. The other thing that makes this possible, because it's replaced our fall auction, is we do no fundraising with the party. Everybody gets 10 tickets to put in on any of the things that are being offered. So it's like a massive raffle. You can put them all in one place, or you can spread them out among 10 things. And next Sunday will be your first opportunity to start doing that, because the following Sunday we will announce who's gotten the different things. So that will all happen after the service. So this week, get your participation in, mainly what your offering is. in terms of an experience of some sort, and if you want to be able to support it financially, that's a separate form. And then the following week, participating by showing up and making sure that either online during the week or in person next Sunday, you say which things you want to win. Thank you.
Thank you, Barnaby. The next pathways to connection is kind of right here, the path that you took in of coming in. If you're new to Champlain Valley UU, if you're visiting over the holidays, there is a guest book in the back that you might want to sign in for. That helps us stay in touch. If you're like, yeah, that all sounds good what you're doing next week and the week after, I just want to know what's in it for me this week. And this is a good pathway to connection. It will take you downstairs after the worship service, where a friend of ours, Abby, the rumor is preparing some freshly baked cookies that we might be able to start smelling. No, they're not happening. Okay, then we'll have to imagine the cookies. Abby's like, nope, we're not doing that. So, oh, I told you it was a rumor. They're already there. Oh, the cookies are there. So but they were made by Alice. Okay. Thank you, Alice. So there are cookies and they are downstairs. I got part of that right. And you're welcome to join us for the social hour downstairs. It was filled this week for Thanksgiving. So more about that later. So this is a pathways to connection also to those yellow cards. If you have a joy or a concern, or you've gone through a transition, or there's something that's on your mind, fill out one of these yellow cards in the back and put it in the offering up at front when we do collect the offering. And this gives us a chance to center on what is at the center of your life. What concern, what joy, what transitions have you been facing that you don't mind sharing, so that we can see the world through your perspective. And finally, our last pathway to connection is a disconnection. If you want to turn your cell phones off, that'll help us be present for each other as we come together. And come, whoever you are, let's join this caravan into an amazing community. Our call to mindfulness today is a poem that I chose from the anthology of The Path of Kindness by James Cruz. It is the poem called The Question by Rosemary Waltola Tromer. The Question. All day, I replay these words. Is this the path of love? I think of them as I rise and I wake my children, as I do the dishes, as I drive too close behind the slow blue Subaru. Is this the path of love? Think of them as I stand in the grocery line at the grocery store. I think of them as I sit on the couch with my daughter. It's amazing how quickly 6 words can become a compass, the new lens through which I see myself in the world. I notice what the question is not. It's not, is this right? Not, is this wrong? It just longs to know how the action of existence links us to the path to love. And is it this? Is it this? All day, I let myself be led by the question. All day, I let myself not be too certain of the answer. Is it this? I ask as I argue with my son. Is it this? I ask as I wait for the next word to come. I ask you to join me in our chalice lighting. We light this chalice to remind ourselves that the warmth and light of love draws us into community and also lights the faces of others wandering in to change and challenge the ever flickering flame that leads us forward.
Good morning. I just want to say, first of all, that I'm so thrilled to see such a big group here, especially the kids. And I would like to invite any kids that want to come up to help me with the Time for All Ages this morning to come up. You absolutely don't need to. So this is just, if it's fun for you. Wow, Katie, you could not look more excited. Okay. Why don't you have a seat? So we have this box. We made this several years ago at this point. Does anybody recognize this? I don't know if anyone will. No. The group of kids made this, but I'm noticing that there's a bunch of stuff in it. So I'm wondering if maybe you could help me. Can you reach in there and want to hand me a bag? Yes. All right. Thank you. Amaya, would you like to open that bag for me? You could totally rip the bag. There's a little piece of tape there, so don't worry about it. Just rip it. There you go. Yes. All right. So pull out what we got there and open it up. All right. So we have this, which is, what is this? A poster of people. What's it say at the top? Meet this year's guests. All right. So, okay, we got a poster. What else we got? You want to keep opening them? Or do you want to take turns? Yeah, the tape is hard tape. All right. So what is this? It's like a book. It is stapled. It does. It looks like one of those little travel guides, like a little brochure or something. It says UUSC Stories of Hope. And I'm noticing same people. Dun, dun, dun. All right. What's next? All right. You're gonna open this one? Here, we'll trade. I'll take your bag. Katie said, you want to say that again?
It's the box.
It's the box. Whoa, Amaya, you're totally figuring it out. I didn't even say anything. A loading box? Oh, a voting box. It does because there's the thing at the top for voting. I appreciate it that Amaya knows what a voting box looks like. Okay, cool. So we got a box. Spread hope, gather. There's a little slot at the top as if you were going to vote. Keep going. So what is this? It's an envelope. Yeah, mysterious envelope. All right, so mysterious envelope with a giant flap. Stuff written on the giant flap. All right. All right. 3 more. 40 more. It will only... You get a little nervous when I pull things out and you're like, how many? We have no idea how many. Ooh. One of the ornaments. All right. Another ornament. You want to hold it up high. There we go. That's good. They didn't even rehearse. I mean, you, by the way, you did not rehearse that. All right, last one. You think? Or you see it? You see it. All right, so can you let's put the bags back. Thank you. What? Thank you. Okay. Why don't you 3 sit down? Here, there, wherever you want. As you like. So, okay, so we got all this stuff. There's a poster, there's this little guy, there's an envelope, there's a box, and 3 ornaments. What? The box. So I'm wondering what the paper stuff is all about. Does anybody know? S at your table. What is that? If only there was an insert that we had put in the order of service, that would have been really clever. Oh, well, I didn't remember. Katie, did you remember to do the insert? Yeah, well, I didn't either. So, oh, well. Wait, what? There is one. Look at that. What an incredible coincidence. That's amazing. So Guests at Your Table launches today. And here's what Guests at Your Table is. There was a group called the UUSC, Unitarian, Universalist Service Committee. They formed about 80 years ago during World War II in response to the rise of fascism and Nazism. And they're an international group that works all over the world to work for human rights. And they partner with local people. So partner means instead of saying, oh, look at that problem there, I know what we should do, I'm going to go in and fix it. They find people who live there or people who are having the problem and say, all right, so what are you doing with the problem? And the person says, we're doing this, we need new wells or whatever. And they say, okay, well, we're going to help you do that. So that's what the UUSC does in a nutshell. And every year they do this thing called Guest at Your Table, which is a fundraiser for them. And here's the idea. The idea is, so see how it says meet this year's guests. Every year they pick 4 people who are the faces of 4 different organizations around the world. And the information about those people and their organizations is in this. And the idea is that instead of they could simply say, please write us a check, we're raising money. And you certainly can just write them a check. They're raising money. That would be great. But they want us to really think about what the people are doing. They want us to think about how we are living our UU values in a daily way, kind of like the poem talked about. Is this bringing me to love? No, what was the line? Is this the path of love, right? So they've made these boxes. And the idea is you take the box home and you put it somewhere where you're going to see it every day. So you might put it on your table, your counter, by the front door, on a coffee table. And you just kind of keep in mind the idea of human rights. What are you personally doing to help make things better? And in this little slot here, every time you go by it, maybe you pull out a little pocket change, the spare change that you have around, or you stick a few dollars in till by the end of December, when you bring these back, there's a bunch of change and it all adds up. This is also a great thing to do with kids who might use a little bit of their allowance, or maybe they could do a little job for a little money. So that's the idea of the boxes. The envelopes are, if you donate $40 or more, you actually become a member of the UUSC and they send you information. So that's what I'm going to say about that. And I'm going to have the kids quickly tell you about the ornaments. So that's okay. Who was here when we made the ornaments? Who was here out of people sitting there who made the ornaments? Kids, I know that there were more of you who were here. A few more. Yeah, I see some hands. So who made these ornaments? Kids. And what are they for? What are we doing with them?
Selling them.
And why are we selling them? Yeah. Why are we selling these ornaments?
To raise money.
Yep. Yeah, so every year, thank you, Willa. Every year, this is a fundraiser that the kids do. We make ornaments, different ones every year. And during the month of December and starting in late November, we sell them to raise money for Guests at Your Table. So out in the foyer, there is a table. It's the Guest at Your Table table. And there are ornaments for sale. There are boxes and information. So we encourage everyone to grab a box. They're folded in flat right now, easy to take home. There are bags if you want to put all your stuff in a bag. So after the service today and for the next 2 Sundays, we will be selling ornaments. If we run out, I don't know if we'll make more. We might, but sometimes we do and sometimes we don't. So 3 different ornaments. We encourage you to support the kids supporting Guests at Your Table. And I think that's all I need to say about that. So I'm just going to put these things in here. Oop. Can you carefully put this in the box? It just goes. Okay. And with that, I think we're going to leave and go over to RE. RE, the Religious Exploration Program. So, kids, if you're here, come on down here so we can leave together. We're going to be sung out. Barnaby, do you want me to leave the box or take the box? What? Okay. I think we're going to sing This Little Light of Mine. Yeah?
Thank you. No, I think we're all set. The kids are gone. This is the problem having a song for the kids. They're out of here like that. We have to think of an even shorter song for them. So we've been donating all of the month of November to support Soulfire Farm. A lot of you have been here at least once. You know this is an organization in the hills west of the Berkshires in eastern New York that is run by an African-American woman and her husband, and they've built up a farm that educates other BIPOC people how to be farmers, that creates packages of food that go to the inner city in Albany, where people don't have access to fresh food, that helps to grow crops that were originally grown by the Mohegan people who occupied that land in the past, and in general works to make the ideas of regenerative agriculture and sustainable agriculture available to BIPOC people and to make it part of their culture. We ask you to be as generous as you are able in supporting them. You can come forward to this basket, particularly if you have a yellow card to leave there. And we can also just pass these baskets around because the crowd has gotten a little bit big for everybody to come forward. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to ask Liam to take this basket to that side, and I'll take it to this side, and we'll collect the offering. We share milestones of joys and concerns in our lives at every service. And I have one from Ginny Moser today. I shared Thanksgiving with 8 family members, all these with me this morning. What a joy. So thank you, Ginny, for bringing everybody. It's fantastic to see extended families show up here when you're in town. Fun to have them share in the experience of CVUUS. And of course, a number of you, a surprising number of you, know that we had an amazing Thanksgiving dinner here on Thanksgiving. 26 people showed up when we count the drop-ins, in addition to the people who signed up. We had no idea that there was such a demand for this, and people are already planning next year. There's one email we got from Richard Hopkins to the organizers, the Hardens, Carol Harden and Alan Moore and Liam and Mike. Thanks again for organizing and pulling off such a great potluck dinner event on Thursday. Gail and I really enjoyed it. And in particular, we enjoyed the chance for extended conversations with a couple of people we did not know before. Thanks for encouraging us to do that. So thanks to all of those who staged this first annual CVUUS Thanksgiving get-together and meal. And I was out of town with my family in DC, but it was one of the highlights of my day to hear about how it went here. There's always unspoken joys and concerns, and we leave a time for that, for people to get in touch with what's on their heart. But before that, I want to introduce Skylar Franklin and have Skylar come up and share it. Skylar was going to be here last week and was unable to make it, but has such important witness to share about the lives of people who are trans. And we weren't able to do that last week, but every week is a week when we should be aware of people who've been marginalized in our society. And the good news is how things are going better here in Middlebury than in a lot of places. So Skylar.
Hello, thanks for having me here today. Thank you, Barnaby, for inviting me. I have to get my notes out. Hi, I am Skylar Franklin. I am a Middlebury resident. I have been out as a trans man for 8 years now. I know a lot of times when people talk about LGBT or being trans, there's a lot of negatives and a lot of sad things that can come from it. A lot of things like that get focused on. I wanted to bring a positive light to it today. Barnaby asked me here. I am very excited to talk with everyone. I don't have a long list of things to talk about today, but I will be here afterwards if anyone wants any more discussion. So I have like 3 things that I brought up that I really enjoy about being trans in my experience. First of all, I think one thing I really love about being a trans person is the perspective it gives me. I think as someone who can experience what it is to be marginalized, what it is to be judged for who you are when you don't have a choice in it, I accept everyone who I meet, whether they are a different religion of me, a different race, different orientation. I think there is a unconditional acceptance that comes from being part of this community, a understanding of everyone is different, everyone has their flaws, and everyone has their beauty in them, and that even if I don't see eye to eye with someone, they still have value, and to still appreciate everyone that I come into interaction with. Another is the connection of community. I have met many people through the years as being someone who is out. I met a lot of people through Outright Vermont. It is a really wonderful organization that helps a lot of LGBT youth. They have a camp that I went to when I was in high school. It was one of the only times I got to meet a large group of people who I could relate with. It is really wonderful. I have lots of friends from there that I still talk to today, even though I haven't gone for 5 years. I met Barnaby through this. I went to CVUUS, which was like the little outreach that we did here, a little group of LGBT high schoolers from Middlebury. And there's a couple people who I tend to recognize in the community from doing that as well. I think it opens people up to being able to meet other people, instantly have a connection. There's always something you can relate innately about when you meet someone else who is trans or LGBT. There's just something about having such a similar experience that not everyone can relate to. Or when you meet, it's just like, oh, you get it. I don't have to go through all the talking and all the details. You just like understand each other really well. And I think that's really unique and special. Another thing I think is as someone who is trans, there's a lot of judgment and societal pressure that can come from looking a certain way or presenting a certain way and identifying a different way. A lot of people, we all base off of first looks, off of first impressions. And sometimes when you meet someone, your visual first impression is not really what they identify as. It's not really who they are on the inside. And even when other people might get it wrong or might not see it, you have to learn to love that about yourself. You have to learn to see your own value, and have your own confidence when you walk into a room and when you meet people, because you're going to have to correct people. You're going to have to put yourself out there more. You're going to have to be ready for more like difficult conversations or explaining yourself, and learning to have that confidence and boosting yourself to be able to have that and to go through that is something I actually appreciate a lot about it. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, it's so great to see you here, Skylar. The Querios, which Skylar mentioned, was a thing we set up, and it ran for 2 years in the basement of Fent House on Friday afternoons. A group of kids at the high school who felt marginalized could just come over here and be together here. And Jordan, who's sitting right out there, played a huge role in organizing it. And every Friday we had 2 or 3 people from the congregation there to just welcome. And I bring it up because it was a wonderful thing for the time it was there, and then it ran its course because of the dynamics of the kids in the group and how they related to other kids at the high school. And we just had to accept that there might still be a need, but we no longer had the group of people to keep it going. But you do good for as long as you can, where you can, and then you keep going. And you ask that question that Liam's poem asks about what's the next thing on the path that works towards love, trusting that what you did will have an impact. And Skylar is who Skylar is, a together person because of a lot of things, a great family, and other things, but also a little bit because this congregation was here with open doors at the right time. So with that, I invite you into a period of silence just to figure out where you are this morning before we go into the rest of our time together. we'll be singing I Seek the Spirit of a Child. It's number 338 in the great hymnal. If you have the hymnal, and the words will be up here momentarily as well.
Our reading for today is from Leslie Takahashi from their book entitled Marginal Wisdom. Life embraces multiple truths, speaks of both and of and. We are taught to see in absolutes, good versus evil, male versus female, old versus young, gay versus straight. Let us see the fractions, the spectrums, the margins. Let us open our hearts to the complexity of our worlds. Let us make our lives sanctuaries to nurture our many identities. The day is coming when all will know that the rainbow is more gorgeous than monochrome, that a river of identities can ebb and flow over the static, stubborn rocks in its course, that the margins hold the center.
So today marks the beginning of Advent. And just before the service, I went into my office. I decided I was going to go with the robe today, just because I have this really festive stole that I can only wear with the robe because it's way too long to wear with the suit. And I wanted that stole that was made for me by the quilters of Montclair when I was ordained. And on my desk, I found left for me in a brown paper bag, which I ripped open, a 24 chocolate days till Christmas Advent calendar with this note. Reverend Barnaby, here is an early Christmas gift. It's for your congregants, family, and friends, both young and old. This is one of my favorite winter fall traditions. Hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Best, a reindeer who goes by Donner. And you know as much about who this is as I do at this point. But it does really underscore for me how I wanted to start talking to you today about Advent. a period in the Christian calendar of preparing for the birth of Jesus. Now, in one sense, it's like a really big deal, a very monumental change that we are told to prepare for by Christians, the arrival of the all-powerful, all-knowing God on earth in the form of a child who is going to save humankind's future. Now, it's a little vague on the details, and that's the subject of some frequent, sometimes deadly conflicts within Christianity and between Christians and others, the exact nature of salvation. But details. No matter how you slice it, the birth of Christ you're supposed to be thinking about is preparing for something that seems to be immeasurably big. On the other hand, this change was promised more than 2,000 years ago, and it suggests that it's unlikely that preparing for actually any new development with Jesus this year is going to be necessary. We're preparing for a holiday that's taken on a lot of secular baggage, and some of it, if we're to believe the Bible, is stuff that would actually appall Jesus. So, Advent, what do we do with that? Well, actually, for me, it's become the most appealing part of the Christmas season because I've come to believe that preparing for any change is generally a huge part of what makes it possible. Any change that we want to bring into the world has to emerge from making a lot of things that are standing in the way less possible and for making that change more possible. So what we prepare for is to make the outcomes we don't want less likely and the outcomes we want more likely so that we have a fighting chance of the world that we want to see being born alive and surviving. If not for us, then for our children. Particularly important when we're talking about climate change. So climate change is the one thing that should be hanging over all of us as we think about Christmas this year. It should have been hanging over all of us 10 years ago. It's definitely going to be hanging over all of us 10 years from now, those of us who are here. I mean, it's absolutely clear that if we don't prepare more aggressively for what's happening, things are going to get much worse than they already are. So it's pretty obvious the role of preparation in making a reality that we want, but details. It's a very practical discipline. Some forms of preparation. If you're going on a trip, you figure out what you need on the trip and you pack it because you won't have it once you're away from your home. But it's also a deeply spiritual form of discipline. And that's why I think it's important to talk about it here, where we gather together to think about things that the world calls spiritual. So, in a sense, I think our Christian forebears were onto something when they started making Advent a bigger and bigger part of Christmas. So there's Advent calendars, there's Advent Christmas carols, there's Advent activities, and each year there seems to be more. It's a veritable playground of experiences preparing for a change of heart. And that's something that could be pretty valuable to us. Now, UUs are like anyone else. We like to compose our own readings and rituals, and each year you look around and you might find some with a more UU cast. One of my favorites that I've come across recently is from a minister in Minneapolis named David Breeden, whom I know from work on ethical eating. And on the very first Sunday of Advent, which this is, he prays, "In this holiday season, may we find the patience to forgive ourselves, to forgive those who do not do as we wish. May we find patience. May we find the wisdom to let it be." And one of the things I love about this is it echoes how the Jewish high holy days start. You want to get inscribed in the book of life, you work on forgiveness. And the idea that Christmas should start the same way that the high holy days start is very appealing to me spiritually. It shows that there's a lot to forgive before we're prepared to accept whatever gift that is that's supposedly coming at the end of the month. Now, as you use, I think we could do a lot for ourselves and the wider world by developing what I would call preparation skills that are spiritually powerful, but are more universally accessible than Advent is with its very, very Christian focus. And I spoke about one of those skills in September when we first gathered. I called it the first essential skill, depolarization. Some of you will hear, and you remember we talked about how our societies become so divided. And as UUs and human beings, one of our skills, essential living skills we need is to learn how to take tension out of situations and how to be in community with people who are being hard on us or find us being hard on them, which echoes what Skylar said trans people face all the time. So I call that the first essential skill. And today I want to talk about the second essential skill, which I'm calling decentering. Now, these skills and the other essentials I'm going to talk about this year, and I think they're going to be 5, are not in any rank order. They start out as random, but it turns out that decentering works pretty well right now, I think, because we started talking last week about this huge decentering movement going on in the Unitarian Universalist world of rethinking these principles that have been in place for decades and explicitly putting love at the center of them, the way Leon's opening words did in that poem. For those of you who aren't familiar with the principles or visiting for the first time, over the years, Unitarians have developed 7 principles of how we're supposed to relate to each other. They are not a belief system. They're principles for all the congregations. A lot of individuals have taken them on as their own principles, but you do not have to subscribe to any belief to be a part of a UU congregation. But one of the things these principles didn't do, very oddly, is they never used the word love. And as the UUs have developed throughout the century on humanist tracks and Buddhism and different forms of secular humanism and atheism have become more important in our congregations, we found ourselves revolving more and more around love and trying to figure out how to say it. Where is it? And so the new proposal is to take those old principles, break them up completely, have some words in a circle around love, and put love at the center. So this is the first thing I want to say about decentering skills. Decentering is not removing forever your center. You can't do it. You are here. You are central to your world. And Kurt Vonnegut once said the most important thing we can do is believe a total fiction that we are the center of the universe, because that's the only way we're going to care about Earth enough to save it. So centering comes naturally to, that's the, we just put up. So this is the new proposal. This is going to be a 2-year process. Some of these words will change. Some of them are already changing. They'll be voted on. But love is going to stay at the center, I'm pretty sure. And if I was a betting person, I would say that at the end of 2 years, we will have something with love at the center. And this all relates to proposed 8th principle that did have love at the center and dealt with dismantling racism. And the effort to decenter our white supremacy culture got us thinking about our whole basic system of who we are and fueled this decentering movement of our principles. The actual 8th principle language will never show up in the UU principles, but it will be, its footprints will be all over the new format if we have one. So I'm not here to tell you that one form of decentering beats all the others. I just want to be clear about a couple of things. It's not like a couple of other D words. It's not like defunding the police. The idea that you can totally eliminate something and that is going to get you where you need to go. You also have to have what you are re-centering. And what we are finding, and this is where the marginal wisdom reading comes in, what we are finding is that recentering involves finding a lot of bodies around us that all have their gravitational pull. It's not finding out where we are by just moving to a point that we can identify. It is a way of living. It's not a step. Liam, moving this over here today so that you would rethink how we do our land greeting is not a decentering action. It is a move towards decentering, but there will be no decentering unless we keep rethinking our relationship to the Abenaki in different ways and listening to them. We can't just decide to do something ourselves and decenter. We need to take our recentering cues from those people at the margin who see the world differently. So this is life work. This is work you won't finish. This is why forgiveness is important, because it's the only thing that's going to keep you going. But, and this is where my most recent title of the sermon comes from, it will take you into abundance. What will be perceived at first as impossible complexity and something you can never get right, and an invitation to make mistakes for which people will jump on you, is actually going to open up to you so many more ways of seeing the world and engaging the world, that this process of decentering is not losing who you are. It's moving into an abundance of what you can be, and an abundance of what you can be in community. It takes you out of that perfect solution you reach for yourself on a walk in the woods, which you should treasure for the moment you have it, but you shouldn't necessarily believe it's going to work in community when you're talking to everybody else who's not there with you on the walk of the woods and didn't come there with the same perspective that you took there. So it's a combination of personal work and community work. I want to tell you a story that's just one little example of how odd this can be, how you would never expect it. So there's a Unitarian church in Flint, Michigan. And in 1957, they were invited to be one of the first churches to call an African-American minister. The man was named Louis McGee. He had been in the U.S. Army during World War II. He'd been a Methodist minister, and he decided he really wasn't a Methodist. And if he was exposing his life to being destroyed in Europe during the war, maybe when he got back, he would expose his life to being going through upheaval to get to where he really believed. And he wanted to affiliate with the Unitarian Universalists. Unitarian Universalists were even whiter than we are now. And the head of the association said, well, we'd love to have you, but you'll have to bring your own congregation, because I can't promise you that someone's going to call you. So he ended up creating his own church in Chicago, a free religious association. It was an integrated church, and he was there for 4 or 5 years, and it was going along, but he still wasn't what he really wanted. And he went on, he became a national officer of the American Humanist Association. And then people said, Flint is opening, and they have some Black families in that congregation, and you should candidate there. And he went there, and they loved his candidating sermon, and he was voted down. Now, there's some special circumstances in there. This was actually a joint congregation of Unitarians and Congregationalists. The Congregationalists hadn't been coming very much, but they showed up to vote down Louis McGee. And then the church split, and they left. But what was interesting was the story almost disappeared. It's people in Flint 30 years later, when an interim minister came, didn't even know about it. They had stopped talking about their own history of dealing with marginalized people. And I don't know whether we've done that too, whether there were African-American people who came steadily in the early years of CVUUS, who none of us here today who are newer know about. I don't know how much we've hung on to our history of dealing with marginalized people. I don't know how much we lift that up, but that's our work. Just like the interim minister told the Flint congregation, it was their work to remember their history and how it slotted in to what had happened to African Americans as a whole. Louis McGee eventually became an associate minister at a Unitarian Church in Los Angeles, which was led by one of the most radical ministers in the congregation at the time. And then he ended up as a called Black minister, the first one in our association, to Chico, California, a very small congregation out of the Central Valley. So life has all these twists and turns, but just because someone has moved on from connection with us doesn't mean that their connection with our recentering work has disappeared. A lot of the recentering work is exploration to find out who you can learn from. So I don't want to go on and on because the recentering work is going to go on and on. You decenter in order to recenter, and you decenter by looking at what you do over and over and over again and saying, is this getting in the way of my going where I need to go? And as the poet Rethke says, we learn by going where we need to go. Today, UU World is filled with every kind of spiritual source. Probably a plurality of UUs in a room like this are atheists and agnostics, but we have Buddhists, we have people who are pagans, we have transcendentalists who believe in some kind of spirit of life. We have some indigenous people in the congregation, and we have people who closely follow the Christianity of prophets like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We're also being driven into recentering by technology. We can see a lot more of the world than was ever possible. We can also misinterpret a lot more of the world than was ever possible. So, in the spirit of radical love and saying, what can I do to be on the path of love, and then do a little bit more to be even more on the path of love in a surprising way that takes me out of what I've done, I invite you into this adventure of decentering and recentering with this wisdom from China, of all places, where religion talks of being on the way. And this quote is, the way you travel is the way. There is no point you end up at. The way you travel is the way. So let's have our closing hymn and get downstairs for some fellowship, talk about radical love maybe, and look forward to the excitement that's coming up with the month of Advent. Path of radical love and centering your values on love.